Hello all, we will wait for a minute and then we will start. Yeah, okay. Hello, good evening all. In today's session, mainly as it is a PQGQ discussion session, so we will do that for week 4 PQGQ, sorry, not GQ, the practice questions, right? For week 4, we will discuss some things, some whatever doubt you have, you can ask. If you have any doubt on the topics, right? Also, if you have any doubt in the activity question, that also you can ask, but we will mainly focus on the practice questions. And but before going to that, right, we will discuss one thing. We will discuss the programming questions that were given, right? For week 2, the deadline has passed, so we will discuss those programming questions, and I will just go through them, and I will code along with you. You can, maybe you can code along with me on your system. And although you all have submitted, so most probably you all have those copy of the codes with you already. Okay, so I will just briefly go through the codes. I will try to code them up, and you can ask you if you in any question you have any doubt. Then we will go to the practice questions. So let me ask this. So any specific questions for week 2, and in week 3 practice question also I will discuss. The practice programming question, that also I will discuss. Week 2 both questions we will do, practice and graded, right? Programming assignments, I mean. And week 3 only the practice we will discuss. So let me ask this question. In week 2 PQ practice and graded programming assignment, and in week 3 practice programming assignment, is there any specific question that you all feel is a little bit confusing or you want more clarification on? Can you all unmute yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there any specific question? Someone, anyone, if you feel that any particular question is a little bit confusing or you could not do it, or you are not able to understand the thing. Okay, wow, great. That means all of you did all the questions in week 2 and week 3 also. You must have tried it, because I think 23rd is the last day. Okay, great. Fine. So I will go to the week 2 questions now. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, since none of you asked any particular question to discuss, let me ask this: that mainly our focus was on this programming discussion, well, because I think in one of the session some students asked that it's good if we discuss some coding and all. So, I mean, should I do all the question in details? Because I don't feel that you all have any difficulty in those parts. What should I do? It's totally upon you. Can I get a raise of hands who wants all the questions to be done in details? The programming question, I mean, huh? Okay. Five, five participants. Any more? Okay, so yeah, these 7 participants can lower your hand. Now, yeah, 2 participants. Yeah, okay. So now those who want to do some specific, ask some specific doubt, or maybe I do 1 or 2 specific questions, which maybe you can also tell, and I can also choose. And all that question we will not go in detail. Who wants that? Those students can raise hand. Wow.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. So no raise. It should be a, I mean, exhaustive
All
set, right?
online classes.
It should be an exhaustive set, because if you are not in one group, you must be in another group. So I see no hand, one hand raised. Yeah, yeah, go on. Is it Sandeep? Mr. Sandeep, right? I did
No,
not.
sir. There is Pritodip here.
Pritodip, okay, yeah, Pritodip. Yeah.
Sir, just wanted to clarify. Are we getting PDF solution sheets for the graded programming assignments?
Uh, you got the solutions already, right? I mean, in the
Yeah,
after
the
the
code.
deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, the code. But are we getting any further explanations on that? Like we are getting for the
No.
graded objective assignments?
No explanation of that sort. The code you will get. If you want explanation, then I can discuss that. Maybe I will not code everything. I will discuss the code that I can do.
Where
All
have
right,
you
sir. All right.
released the code
Thanks.
for that?
Sorry,
You
someone.
said the codes you have released for the PPAs and the credit this programming assignments.
Yeah, once the deadline is over, the code will be released. Now you can just check your week 2 solution code.
Until now, you have only for the only practice this. I thought only this MCQ one is there. Is there for the
Okay.
codes also, the
Let me show you.
PPAs and the GPAs?
Let me show.
Yeah, it has been uploaded. It is
So
visible.
see, so this is your portal, right? So here I am clicking on the
Yes.
practice programming assignment number 1 for week 2. See this week 2.
Okay.
Week 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go. Yeah, here you see the solution code tab.
Okay.
You
Okay.
can
Okay.
click over here. You will see the solution code.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. One more question I have.
Hmm.
Like these practice programming assignments. So you have given this deadline for this practice also. But as for earlier, I think we did not
Yeah.
have any deadline, and we could have practiced those.
Yeah. So see, anyways, I think you all have the question, right? We can set the deadline accordingly if we may not set it for the next time. But you should have the question, right? So you can do that on your own also.
Yeah, question we have, but this test case and all we don't have. So
Okay. So
yeah.
test
Because
case.
in other also like in like last year Python also I think we had this some deadline. It was extended a deadline after up to end term, something like this.
Okay, fine, no issue. So we will do that from your current week, right?
Yeah, it means if it's better, means it would be nice, I guess.
Fine.
Others also think like that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, what we thought that initially also, but one point we thought was that okay, so if we have a deadline for practice, also maybe we could tell or enforce more of you to practice it in a better way.
That
Because
is nice, but I think once we submit, I think then if you can reset the deadlines, means for our exam and all. I'm just asking.
yeah, I got it. So it's
Just
okay.
for practice
Anyway, we will have it.
So
I mean,
Bhaskar,
we'll have a
yeah,
greater
yeah,
deadline.
Bhaskar,
ma'am.
I think the other reason was they won't be able to see the private cases, whether they passed or not until the deadline passes, right? Something like that is there. No?
Yeah, that is also there. The private cases you won't be able to see. You will be able to see the solution, but private cases I don't think you will be able to see.
But if you extend the deadline, I think then we can see.
No, once you extend the deadline, it becomes a new assignment kind of, right?
No, I think in Python we had like for practice assignments, the deadline was not as great. Like right now also in our system command, the PPA's deadline is something like 6 July or something like that.
So you can still see the private test cases, is it?
Yeah, everything we can see.
No.
We
Let me ask
do
this.
submit it. We do it submit because there is some marks also. No? If we submit the practice assignment, there are some marks. We will be some bonus marks is there. So anyway, we will submit. But I'm just asking for the practice.
Okay. So let
purpose.
me ask this. Once you submit, then you can see the private cases.
Yes,
And
yes.
later on, the deadline is I think extended, right, for practice.
No, even right now also the deadline is 6th July. But I submitted like before when I submit the graded assignment. So I can see the practice, both the private and the public both tests.
Okay, so Bhaskar, I think we'll check it. Like, I don't know whether the
Kindly
permission-
check this. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, we'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, Pritodeep, was your doubt clear? I mean, is it you are asking what you are asking? You are asking that okay, explanation. Yeah. So yeah, explanation you will not see. You will see the solution code only like this. Okay, yeah, Kumar, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Actually, I want to discuss some concept about that. If no one has the question, then I want to clear some concept about the week 3, 4, and 2 altogether.
Yeah, so we will go to that part also. That's why I was asking, should I go in detail in a code along manner? I thought that's what you all were asking for all the questions.
Actually, it is not related to code and any particular question. It's related to overall. Maybe it's some part in some question, some part. So overall, the question raised in the mind. So how to think this idea like that?
Okay, Kumar, got it. So maybe let me just confirm this issue, then we will get back on that, right? I will ask you about it. Okay.
Okay. Should I tell that?
No. Just wait for some time. I will ask you about it. Then you can tell. And then
Okay,
we will...
actually, just I'm telling the hint, sir. It is something related to the abstract class interface and the polymorphism. So it is the question is combined that one thing is working one place, one thing is not working.
Yeah. Got it, Kumar. Got it. So we will anyway discuss week 3, right? So what I want to clear now is that whether I should do the code along for week 2 questions, or do you, I mean, all of you don't want that because it would take time. If you all understood everything, then it is fine. We should not go into that thing. It would waste the time. Then I will just give explanation for each of the code and maybe do 1 or 2 code that I feel I should discuss. But all the codes I will not go through in a code along manner. Right? So that's what I want to ask all of you. You all can respond. Because when I said who all wants that I should not do the codes, none of you raised your hand. It is better.
The code along would be appreciated.
Okay. Anyway, since only 7 persons raised hand and in the opposite case none of them, so you all win. I will only code along. Maybe not all the codes, but maximum of them. Right. Okay, so let's go to week 2.
I think in week 2, if you discuss graded programming assignment 3, that will be more than enough.
Okay, so let's discuss that first only. Week 2 graded 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will not go it directly. Sorry. I will not go to this directly. Let me discuss just the previous question, then I will come to this. So graded programming 2, then we will go to graded programming 3. Yeah. So whenever you see, so this is for those who feel a little bit difficulty while for this, I mean, having this transition from Python to Java. So I will just explain this in a slowly manner. First code, and then we will go to the other codes a little bit faster. Okay. See how you can start writing these codes, right? I mean, for the first timers. So how you can start writing the solution code? Always, we know that in Java the entry point of the program is main method, right? So you forget about everything and directly see what is there in the main method line by line. That is the way to understand what you have to write in the code. Okay, so you go to the main method, you see that there is a scanner s equal to new scanner. That is basically I am defining a scanner object. A scanner object we are only using for taking input, so that is fine. After that, you see that there is one employee object created, right? We are creating an employee object. Now you have to see, okay, can you see my cursor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay. Yeah. So see, we are writing this employee, right? This employee, first bracket open, first bracket close. What is this? Yeah, tell me just, I mean, it would be good if you all interact. So please tell, what is this? What are we doing by this statement?
Initialize a blind.
Creating a new using a copy constructor, we are creating a new object.
Copy constructor? We have not yet come to.
Sorry, we are creating a new object of employee class.
Great. Yeah, so basically we are calling the no argument constructor, right? The no argument constructor, which is already defined. This one. Fine. So this is a valid statement. Public employee, this is already defined, and we are using this to call this method, right? This constructor. Fine. Okay. So after that, inputs are there. Next line, next line, next line. These are inputs. So we will see them later.
Here, one more thing, sir. I want
Yeah.
to discuss here.
Yeah.
So it is written the employee E1 equal to new employee.
Yeah.
So what's that? The starting employee defined, and what is the employee method? New employee, the class defined. Because two things later does matter a lot.
Yeah. So we discussed this in the initial days, right? Kumar also see this is the left hand side of equal to is the reference variable. It's just a variable. This is the object. Whenever we call a constructor, see, whenever this is called, this is employee class name, first bracket open, first bracket close. I mean, it may be some parameter also. See here we are passing a parameter.
Yeah.
This
Later,
one.
actually,
Yeah.
what's whenever I create the parent class and the child class, suppose we have a parent and the child class out of the main class F class.
Yeah.
And the child class is extend the parent class.
Okay.
So in that case, we can write the two way of we can create object. One is the parent E1 equal to new child something, and one is the child E1 equal to new child something.
Yeah.
So that's the left side thing is that parent and the right side is the child. So these two things make the change.
Yeah, got
Actually,
it, Kumar. So we will deal with that in inheritance, right? So we will go to this week 3 question, then we will discuss that. So here inheritance is not there, so we can skip that for now. Let me go to the week 3 question. We will discuss. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So so here basically the constructor, the default no argument constructor is called, which is already defined over here. So no issues. Fine. After that, we are taking input, and then see here another line is given. Here we are defining another object of employee class, but here we are passing 3 parameters. The parameters which we took input. See, ID, name, and department. Right. So we are passing these parameters into the employee constructor. Now you have to see where this call is going. This call went over here. This was the first constructor call. It went over here. It called this constructor. Fine. Now where is this call going? Is there any method of this format, employee and then the 3 parameters? Right?
We need to define them.
No, sir,
need
we'll
to-
have to define one.
We need to define them exactly. So now we have to define them. So I will just copy paste this whole thing in my just the name of this F class I have to change because my file is named something else. Just one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have to define a constructor of this format. So let's do that. Okay. So what was the format? We know the constructor's return type is. What is the return type of a constructor? No return type.
There is no return type.
There is no return type. So constructor name is always the class name, right? And then I have to pass the parameters accordingly. So what are the types? Name is a all are string. Whatever variable you want to put, you put. String n, string I, string department D. Fine. Now what is the work of a yeah?
Do we need to write string 3 times?
Yeah. In Java, you have to mention the data type, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if all are the same data types,
Does it
is
work?
there any?
I don't know. Let me
No,
check.
I'm just asking, is there any?
I don't think
other
it
way?
should. I don't think it would work, but let me check. Yeah, it doesn't work. In C++, Java, in all these language, we have to mention actually. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So I did this, and then let's write the what is the work of a constructor now. So we know this is a constructor, right? We know there is a constructor because this method is getting called when we are declaring object, right? So there is a constructor. The work of a constructor is to initialize the data. I mean the instance the properties, the data members of the class, right? So let's initialize them. There is indentation issue. Yeah. So let's initialize them. I got ename equal to n, then eid equal to id, and department
EID equal to Y basket.
oh yeah. So this is the parameterized constructor we have defined. Fine. Okay. So see, this line is now valid line. So whenever this line is executed, we will go, the compiler will go to this method and it will call. Right? So is the initial.
Sir,
Yeah.
if you use this dot
fine.
ename, this
Fine.
all mean the same only.
All mean the same. If
Okay.
you see, it will only be different if I write this.
Okay, this dot ename means it refers to that data member which is out, like above the public employee, outside global, the data member which you have first mentioned on top.
Yeah.
That only it refers to.
Yes.
The string ename. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the objects property, right? Objects property. These are objects properties.
Okay.
And these are objects behavior. All methods are objects behavior. All data members are objects properties. So work of a constructor method is to initialize the objects properties. That is the variables, these variables.
Okay.
Whenever I write any EID or ename, I mean, whenever I reference these variables directly in the methods, right? Whenever in these methods, whichever method I define, that means I am referring to that particular object's ename. Okay. So let's suppose E1 and E2, two objects are there, right? E1 and E2, two objects are there. Fine. So when I am referring to E department equal to D within this method, which is called while defining this object. So while I define this object, at that time, this method is called. right? So at that time, ename means, sorry, forget about this as of now, just a second. At that time, EID means the EID for E2. But again, if I define another object, fine. So whenever this line is executed, then again, this method would be called, right? And at that time, this EID would be EID for E3. Only difference is if I make this static, right? Then whenever I am changing EID, that will change for all the objects. I mean, if I change EID equal to something for E3, it will automatically reflect for E2 as well.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so let's delete this. This was not in the code. So my parameterized constructor has been defined. Okay, so one thing I was planning to discuss. So see, you are asking that I can write this dot EID and it would also work fine. But what is the compulsory condition when you should write this dot? That is when you are using the same variable name inside the function, this employee, this parameter, right? Local parameter that you are copying into this parameterized constructor. When you are using the same name, ename, and here also you have ename, the property name and the local variable name both are same. Then
so the argument name and the data member name should be same to
same,
use that this stuff.
If same.
So in this case, you mentioned just single letter like E, I, string E, string I, string D. In this case, it won't. It is not possible to use this.
No, it is not possible is wrong word. I mean, say you can use it or you may not use it. See,
okay.
This is not
It's
a compiler
avoidable.
error. Yeah, it's
It's avoidable.
Yeah, you can or you may not write it.
Okay.
But see what's happening over here. This is an error. When you write this, not an error, this is a logical error rather than a syntactical error. It is a logical error. What is happening over here? This is not initialized. What is your idea? Your idea is this ename, the left hand side one is this ename, right? And this ename is this ename. The right side one is the argument one, and the left side one is the this property one. This is your idea. I mean, like EID any department, this was your idea, but this will not happen, right? This is called shadowing of operands. So what will happen over here is all these ename, this ename will actually consider this one. Why it will do that? So this is just like you are writing 1 equal to 1, something like that.
So here we can write this dot ename equal to ename and then EID equal to I and EDEPT equal to D.
Exactly. So this is here not we can, we have to. So here it is compulsory. So when I'm writing this dot ename, then the compiler understands since I have put this, that means this ename actually refers to the object's property, not the local variable, not this one, but this one. Okay. So whenever I'm writing this, that explicitly means that you are only trying to refer to the object's property and not any local variable or local parameter. Fine. So if I change this to something else, like which is not same as the name, then we can use whatever.
So Bhaskar, just to clarify, you see these variables are all like names for some memory locations, right? So even when we put ename in both places, we may assume that the both are actually the same memory location, which is not. When it comes inside the object, it is pointing to a different, the ename within the class is pointing to a different memory location, whereas the string ename, which is coming via the parameter, is pointing to a different memory location, even though we are referring to both by the same name. So in order to help the compiler distinguish between the two, we must necessarily put this dot ename equal to ename. I mean, which memory location are we referring to? That is something we have to tell the compiler, right? So for that, we have to necessarily use this dot ename when both the variable names are same. Yeah, that's it. Bhaskar, carry on, please.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So it's, I think it should be clear now, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so let's come back to main again. So this is the technique that you will always use for the, for the first timers, right? When you are writing code in Java for first time. So this is the technique. Every time you will go to main, see what you have to implement, go outside main, and implement what is necessary. Again, come to the line where you left off. So we left off at this line, and then we know that this is the constructor call, right? So we'll go to the constructor call, and we see that there was no constructor of this type, so we created one. Fine. So again, come back. Let's come back. We were here. Let's see what is the next line. So next line is e1 dot copy depth e2. Right. So there must be some copy depth called method, right, inside the class, because we are using the object to call this method. What are the information that this line is giving you, right? The first thing that you observe over here is that e1 dot something is written. That means you are using an object of employee class to call a method. That will tell you that this is an instance method. Copy department is a instance method. That is, it is called using each instance, right? So let's go to the class and implement this copy department method. Fine. Now, what are the things that a method must have, right? Can you tell me what are the parts of a method, typical parts of a function or method, whatever? Yeah. Not with respect to copy department or this code. Just tell me what are the typical parts of a method.
Return type, parameters.
Okay, one by one. So return type, fine. So if I would have any return type over here, I should have put it into a variable or something like that, right? Or I should have printed it, but I'm not doing anything like that in this code. I just called this method, right? There is nothing called inTex equal to. I'm not putting the value of this copy department anywhere. Neither am I printing it. So that means that its return type is void. We are expecting that. Okay, so let's write public void. Yeah. Go on. You are saying the next part, right? Tell me what is
parameters for the function.
Parameters
for the method.
Yeah. Parameters for the method. So what are the parameters? So you see
employee object.
Employee object. So we are passing an employee object in this method. So we have to define the parameter as an
employee object.
Okay. So I just defined an employee object. So see, this is a method inside employee class, which is called by one employee object, and it receives another employee object as the parameter. Can you give me an example of another such method which you have to deal with in the programming assignment? I mean, there are many. Copy constructor is one, but the equals method was also there, right? In one program. So that equals method also
yes,
is of the
but that returns a value.
Yeah, so but that returns a Boolean type. So we'll discuss that also. Okay, so up to this it is clear. Now I have to define the body. So you cannot get any information about the body from the just calling the function. So it should be communicated to you via the comments. So you can see the comment that it copies the department name of E2 into E1's department name, right? So it will copy the department name of the parameter, right, the argument, and it would place it into the E1's department name. So let's do that. How to do that? I will simply write E1's department name. So E1, or not E1, sorry. This dot, I can also directly write E name, sorry, E department. Right. Then I will hit obj dot department. Done. Next thing. Okay. See the error. Yeah.
Sir, in this case, this dot edep would be referring to the department of which one?
Yeah. So whenever I'm calling a method, right, which is an instance method. So this is a calling the method, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Whenever I'm calling a method, this pointer will always point to the object which called that method.
So in this case, E1.
E1. Okay.
Got it, sir.
So the definition of this pointer is, sorry, a pointer, you can say that pointer only. So the definition of this is that it will always refer to the current active object. Now that means the active object means if you are trying to call a method using an object, then that object is the current active object. E2 is just a parameter. You could have passed integer or whatever, if you assuming that you define here appropriately. But in order to call copy department method, you should have one object. Otherwise, you cannot call, because this is an instance method. This is not a static method. Therefore, the object that you are using to call this instance method is the current active object, and always this pointer will point to that object. Okay. So we implemented this one. Let's go to the last one. So e1.display details is just a display method, and obviously it also you know that there is no return type and all things. So you just have to do the display. Now the display details, see, you have to see the test cases in order to know how to print the thing. What is the format of printing? So let's see what are the test cases and how we have to print. Okay, so ename space colon space whatever the values. Fine. Ename space colon space the value ename.
Sir, just to clarify, we can also write this dot ename instead of ename here, right?
Exactly. This is just an optional thing. Only when it becomes compulsory is when you use the same variable name
To avoid ambiguity.
To avoid ambiguity.
Got it.
Right. Okay. So I'm not editing this. I will edit it for the first time. EID.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, can the other class function can be written after the main class, or it should be written before main class?
I did not get you.
You have written public class test1, right? Before that, there is one more employee class above. Can the employee class come after public class test1, or it should come before only?
Placement, right? I think it can come. That
Okay.
problem is there in C++. There, I think it is okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
Thank you.
So in C++, if any of you are doing that, so in C++ you have to define the prototypes first. Otherwise, if you write it after, then it will not work.
Sir, one thing, can you clear that whenever we write the return type, one is the either some return type. So what's the difference when we write the void and not writing the void?
No,
because
void you have to write, right? Public or private, that you can avoid. This one you can avoid, but void you cannot avoid. You have to write.
In Bhaskar, only for the constructor we don't give any return type, right? Yeah, that's probably what he's asking about.
Oh,
correct.
Okay. So
constructor is without any return type. Void is a return type actually, which is void return type. Whereas for constructor, there is no return type.
So constructor doesn't matter how many parameter, without parameter, or so all constructor we can write without void.
Kumar, see, I will. Constructors do not have any return type. Void means it will not return anything. Now there is a subtle difference between these two things. When I say constructor does not have any return type, that means we are not providing anything because it is implicitly known, because the implicit return type of constructor is the class type itself. Now, please bear with me. It is, you asked this, that's why I am discussing it. We do not write any return type in front of constructor because it is implicitly implemented that constructors return a reference address of the object it created. And that's why you are putting that reference object equal to E1. Okay. So whenever this is a constructor call, right? What it is actually doing in system is It is allocating a space for the object in the memory, right, in the heap, and it is returning. I am also again saying it is returning address reference to the left hand side expression. Now, when it is returning, why are we not mentioning any return type in front of constructor? Is it void? No, it is not void, because it is actually returning internally. That's why we cannot write void. But also we cannot write employee, since it is creating an object, right? Then ideally it should be employee, something like this. The return type should be employee. But we do not write that. That is prohibited. But if logically, if you think, the return type of constructor is like this one. It returns the reference of the same object that it created. Okay, logically. But if you write it, then it would give error. See, it is giving error. So we do not write the return type of a constructor. The reason for that is it implicitly is defined, but it is not void. And that's why we also cannot write void. So if I write void, then it is not a constructor at all. It will not give you error, but this employee is just like another employee method. It is not a constructor. It will not be called when you create an object.
Okay, clear, sir. So at the end, conclusion that in constructor, automatically it is the compiler no. And
Exactly.
for the other method, we must have to give either void or that its type.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got the point why we cannot write void?
Yes.
Yeah,
Clear.
void means you are not returning anything, but constructor actually returns the address. Okay.
And even I can't give the any other parameter because
Nothing.
it is object type.
Because it is object type. And you even cannot write object, because that is implicitly considered by constructor. I mean, sorry,
because
compiler.
I'm writing the same object name is the little. So means if the line 15, if according to you told that if I will give the type, then its type will be employee, so it's meaningless. So
yeah,
that whole thing is handled by the compiler itself.
That is handled by compiler itself. That's why you cannot write.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, ma'am.
Sir, another doubt.
Yeah, just a second, ma'am. You wanted to say something?
No, that's it.
Okay. No, I thought that you unmuted.
No.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You're asking something.
Sir, in C++, there is a difference in the void and others, that void has to be specially printed via CF statement. Other functions can be called directly.
Yeah.
Is it the same with Java? Like if I declare, say, a public int function, and then in the main class, I have to write system.out.println for it, or do I just write the name of the function directly?
If you write a void function, then after that?
No, if I write an integer function in a class and in main, do I need to send it to println, or do I just write the function name with the parameter?
No, if you are returning something, you should store it, na? Or you should print it, whatever.
Okay, so I need to use println.
Yeah, you can print it or you can store it in a variable or whatever.
Okay, so got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this code is completed. You see there is no error on the left hand panel. Okay, so no compiler error. If you run it, it will execute. Is there a way to minimize this zoom window which is coming on top? Every time I have to pull this down and then execute. It is hiding the execute button.
Actually, we can see that. We cannot see the other zoom thing.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can
yeah.
see your buttons. I don't know. Maybe you can bring that quick access panel to the side or something. I don't know whether that's it.
Sir, you can use the execute shortcut.
Okay, I can drag it, but I don't know.
No, I don't know whether we can drag it. I'll just check. I'll check in parallel and let you know. Okay, you can continue for now.
Yeah.
Check.
What is that library package test you are written in the second line?
Okay, again package. Now package is making life difficult. See, this package thing is basically I am. See, if you see in the left panel, you see that
include that it will show error, sir.
No, if you do not include this, it will not show error. It is something, this package test, wherever you will see now, that is something that is related to my system.
Okay.
Once we complete this package topic, then all these things will be clear.
Okay.
Bhaskar, I think in Eclipse it will show an error if you don't put the package statement, right?
No, here it will show error. Yeah. I mean, I think they are asking about their own submission. Yeah.
Okay.
Their own code.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, I do tried in Eclipse different programs, but I didn't understand the hierarchy on the left side.
Yeah, we will discuss that in package.
Okay.
Then it will be very clear.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So you can just as a fun exercise, you can check that whatever is coming this hierarchy in the left hand side. Now, if you open your, I mean, wherever that these programs are stored in the hard disk, like folder. So you can check there that each this package name, here my package name is test, right? So you will have a folder called test, and inside that folder you will have test1.java, test2.java. So packages are basically folders. It's not the correct way to say, but now I would like to say that only. That packages are just like folders, and in that folders you are having the Java programs. We will deal with this in detail in the upcoming weeks.
Okay.
Sir, every class in Java needs to be defined. Every public class needs to be defined in its own file, right?
Yeah.
So if I were in line 7, if you were to change the class employee to a public one, you would have to define
Error.
it in a new file.
In a new file, exactly. If I directly write public, it will give error.
Okay, sir, got it. So the most easy workaround for like testing programs which we do is to just make sure that there's only one public class in a function.
Exactly.
In a file.
In a program.
Yeah.
Program, yeah.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. But you can have multiple classes. Again, packages will come. You can have multiple classes in one package, and then you can use them in the program which is there in that package. Okay. So just
okay, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to have an idea of that, so in one folder you have multiple classes, right? Sorry, not classes, multiple program or files, .java files. Each .java file has a public class, right? On which public class's name that file name is given, and all of these files are there inside one folder. The folder name is the package name, right? And in them, each .java file are the class names, the public class names. Now, in that folder, if you define another file, another program, right, with another public class, then in that public class, you can use any object of the classes which is there inside that folder of the other classes. So see, in test, I have test1, test2, right? So there are some conditions for that, but generally you can use the object of test1 inside the program of test2 that you can do. We will discuss these things, but yeah, that is the basic idea.
Okay, so packages allow us to use multiple objects from multiple public classes across multiple programs.
Yeah, it is. You can say that it is just
Okay,
like a
sir.
storage location for grouping classes. Okay.
Got it, sir.
Okay, we will discuss. Okay, anyways, so this.
So Bhaskar, just one input. You can actually drag it to the left.
Yeah.
Can you just see that panel? Yeah. No, on top of that, no, you wanted to drag the run button.
The
to
zoom
the left.
interface.
Drag the.
Yeah, there. Just no, left. Just move it to the left a little. Your mouse. No. Your mouse. If you bring it there, you can see that four. No, maximize it.
This one, right? This.
No. Actually, the four or five run buttons are there. No, 3 run buttons are there, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to the left of it, if you just one more left. If you keep it there somewhere, you will get that 4 arrow symbol, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I don't know whether you're clicking on the right one. Just try dragging it to the left. Then it will come vertically. Yeah. Now it has gone. Yeah. See, that's coming. You can put it to the left.
Yeah.
Bring it. Yeah, to the extreme left.
Okay.
It's not coming, is it? Okay. Then probably you have to hide the package explorer. If you hide the package explorer, it is coming. Yeah. Now it is come to the left. Yeah. Does it help?
Yeah. Then it is easier. Yeah.
Sure.
Got it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. So that was regarding packages and all. Okay. So these things are done. Okay. I will go to the next question now. This is the difficult question. Now I will discuss this. Not difficult. Just one little trick is there. The graded programming assignment 3 of week 2. How many of you understood the concept of shallow and deep copy? Okay. So this is again the
Shallow
employee.
copy,
Yeah.
shallow copy, the whole memory will be overwritten, right? The size of the class.
Yeah, it is. It's like shallow means you are lazy person. That's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're simply copying the reference.
And deep copy, each and every variable
Yeah.
will be.
You are hardworking person, so you are keeping each value and then copying them. So I will discuss that. Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Is deep copy different from cloning?
I will not address that now. Let's go to cloning, then we will discuss.
All right, sir. All right.
Yeah, you may ask it on Discord, then we will respond. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So I'm just copying the code. Okay. Fine. Okay, so this is the code that we have. Okay, so like previously, we will directly go to the main method. Right, let's go to the main method. First line is a scanner object, which will be used for taking input. Then we have an array. Okay, fine. The array is statically defined, so no issues. After that, taking input. Now, this is the line that we have to deal with. Employee E1 equal to new employee ID name projects. Like previously, we are simply calling another constructor. Right? So we'll define the constructor. Are all strings here. What are the values? PIN. Okay.
INP, right?
Oh, sorry, INP. Okay, yeah.
P.
So INP. Yeah. Now we will do the assignment. EID equal to now. Okay, so how to assign this normally, right? So E projects equal to normal assignment. Oh, this is an array, right? So I have to pass. Okay, so this is again one little thing. See, what is project? We are passing the project. It's an array, right? You see that project is an array, string array. So you have to set this type accordingly. So I'm making this the array type, right? Okay, string array P. Okay, so initialization done. Let's go to the next statement. Next thing is employee E2 equal to new employee E1. What is this? What is this?
Creating a new object.
Yeah.
Copy.
So
This is
creating
copy.
this copy constructor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically we are creating a new object E2 in which we are passing the object E1 as a parameter. The intention is that copy constructor must copy all the data members. That is, all the data members should be put inside the E2's data member. I mean, all the data members of E1, right? The values of the data members of E1 must be put inside the values of the data members of E2. That is the idea of a copy constructor. Fine. Okay. So let's define the copy constructor. Public employee. That's why we call it copy constructor, because it copies the passed object in the parameter. not copies the passed object, the object which is passed in the parameter, that object's properties, that is these properties, EID name, it will copy into the property of the E2 object. Return type would be not return type. Argument type would be employee only because it is accepting a object of employee type. Okay, so employee. Similarly, this dot EID equal to E dot EID. I'm copying the EID value for E into the EID value for the current object, right? Now this E is basically E2, right? Currently now it is, sorry, not E2, E1. This E is basically E1. This is a local variable which is referring to E1, right? I mean, is this concept clear? Why E1 and E I can write? It's a local variable. So E1 and E both are pointing to the same location. Okay. So E1, whenever I'm copying into E as a parameter, both of them are pointing to the same memory location. So wherever E1 is pointing, and so whatever changes E1 is doing, that will also be reflected in E and vice versa. Okay. So I'm putting the value of EID for E object, that is here E1 object, right, into the object which is pointed by this, that is the currently active object. That means which is being created now. That means E2. Okay.
Can I ask one question here, sir?
Yeah. So this is like E2.eid equal to E1.eid. Yeah, Kumar.
Yes. Actually, whenever we talk about that sometime back, that we defined where to use the this and not.
Yeah.
So when the variable instance variable is that the same as that object variable, then we use the this.
Yeah.
But here we are sending the employee, and which is the not same as that. So why it's necessary?
Not necessary at all.
Okay.
Correct. Not necessary at all.
So okay, now it makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. That is just a practice. I mean, it makes the code look more, I mean, explanatory. Okay, so it is more explanatory than not writing this. That's why it's a good practice of writing.
So in that case, we can say that we can always write the this to avoid any type of error.
Yeah, you can do that. That is much better way of dealing. Okay. That is also a good way, but conceptually you should be clear that you may use it. Yeah, you may or may not use. You have to understand when I have to use, when it is not mandatory, because you have to read others' code, na? So then these things would be important. Yeah, Preetodip, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask whether the copying that is done by the copy constructor, it is shallow copy, right?
Let us go to that point. Then just wait. Okay, don't unmute. So EID equal to EID is done. After that, name is there. Ename equal to E dot ename. And now finally project. So E projects equal to E dot E projects. Yeah. So at first tell me, is this shallow copy or deep copy?
I'd say this is shallow copy.
This is just a shallow copy. Now what is shallow copy and what is deep copy? See, you asked copy constructor is doing shallow copy or not. So I am asking you a question. Is this E project? So what is the intention of constructor? It initializes the object's parameters, object's variable, right? So that means E project is an instance it is a instances property, a object's property, right? So one employee's E project. So let's take E1 employee. Forget about this code and all. Just tell me this thing. So there is one employee E1 and there is another employee E2, right? Now E1 employees E projects might be different from E2 employees E projects, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So these are employees property. That is the very idea of having a class. It is a blueprint for different object which will have the properties of which will have the properties defined inside this blueprint, right? So these are the properties of each person. Person means employee. Okay, so each employee. So it is totally different from one employee to another. So E projects is different for E1 and it may be different for E2. A person can work, employee E1 can work in some projects, or the employee E2 can work in other projects. So if I do this statement, if I write it in this manner, E projects equal to E dot E projects, right? Or maybe this, whatever, these two are same thing, whether I write this or not. So let's delete it now. E projects equal to E dot E projects. What is this statement doing? Okay, so for those also who did not get the shallow copy, deep copy part, this is basically E projects is basically, just a second. Pritodip, I'm addressing your question only, but
Yes, sir.
just address this in a. So what's happening? I wrote E projects equal to E dot E projects. Fine. So this was my statement. Now see, what's happening? Give me a minute. Why it is working like this? Okay. So in the heap, so assume this is my heap. Okay. So this is my heap. Okay. So in this heap memory, when I write E1 dot E project, suppose, ideally what we want is there is one memory location, like the E projects is an array, right? And for E2 dot E projects, there is another memory location. Okay. So this is what we ideally want, because the reason is E1 and E2 are different employee and they can have different projects, and project is not a static variable, it is an instance variable, and therefore it will be different for different objects. So E projects will be over here and E2 E projects will be over here. But whenever I'm writing this statement, this is what we want logically, right? But whenever I'm writing this statement, it's not creating this E2 project at all, right? Whenever I write, so in this term, it would be like E1 dot E project and E2, yeah. So whenever I'm writing this, it does not mean that it's creating a different project. What it means is, in E1's project, I made one mistake, so this should be E2, this should be E1 logically. Yeah. What it means is, I'm simply making E2 equal to E1 dot E projects, which ideally means the address inside E1 dot E project, address pointed by or referred to by this one, is copied into this one. Okay. So this statement actually means this thing. Okay. So yeah.
So sir, they are both referring to the upper array in that case, right?
They are both referring to the upper array.
Okay, sir, got it.
So this is what we call shallow copy. That is, you did not go inside each cell, and this was your intention. Your intention was, I will go inside E1's each cell, copy the value over here. Again, go inside over here, copy the value over here. That was your intention. That's what you wanted. Because these two would be different for E1 and E2. E1 and E2, these two will be different. But initially, I am allowing the employee E2 to have the same value of E1. Later, employee E2 can also work in some other project and change his own value accordingly. That was the idea. Okay, but here that is not allowed. I mean, here it is not happening. Here something else is happening. If I write this statement, right? So this was your idea. I will copy this, then paste it over here, then copy this and paste it over here. Done. Now E1 and E2 are independent. We only copied the value. If I change this value of E2, so let's take this was initially ABC. Okay, this cell. It was storing ABC. It is a string array, right? So it was storing ABC, suppose. So this also got initialized by ABC because I copied, right? But later, if I change this ABC to something else like CDE, this will not affect this ABC because that is just a copy, right? I'm just changing over here. I'm just changing over here. I'm not changing anything in this part. I'm only changing here. Okay. Only the initialization will be equal, right? Whatever E1 started with will be copied into E2. Okay. So this notion that copying each value into its own memory location, this is what we call deep copy. This is deep copy. That is, you are going deep into each value and copying them into the new area, new memory location. And this is shallow copy. The thing that we did over here, shallow copy. This one. That is, you did not go into deep inside each memory location one by one. You did not go over there. Rather, what you did is you simply copied the reference of this memory location from E1 into E2. A shortcut trick. Let's not go inside the deep each value. Just copy the first address and put it over here. Now the problem is, since you copied this, now this change will be difficult for you to do because both of them are pointing to the same memory location, which is over here. Both of them are pointing, and so when either of the objects e2.eProjects changes, right? It changes. It is basically changing this memory location, right? Then this change will also happen for E1 automatically because E1 is also referring to the same memory location. So you did not want that. If E2 is changing his department, it no way means E1 employee is also changing department. Okay, it's not correct unless and until it is a static variable. It's a static department, right? But that is not the case. So this is not proper. So this is shallow copy. Okay, the thing that we wrote just now, that was a expression for shallow copy. So we don't want that. We do not want that. What we want is a deep copy version of it because we want these e-projects to be different for each employee. How to do deep copy? You got the idea. So tell me how to do it. You just want to copy each cell value into the new cell value.
Yeah, a loop is required, and one by one I have to copy into the project loops.
A loop is required. Yeah. So we'll run a loop into the e-projects array and simply copy the value. That's it. So let's make a loop for okay. So what should I put over here? I will run the loop for this. I want to copy the e-projects for this e object, right, into the current object, right? Okay. Yeah, Pritodip, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, is there any other method to do it without using loop? I mean, any method to do deep copy without using loop? Because I tried using the loop, but there was some compilation error, so I had to forgo that idea.
No, actually, we need to allocate the memory by using new string.
Yeah. So that is one point that I would discuss. Yeah, that's why I did not try.
And along with that, we can pass the whole value, e.project value. Yes.
Yeah. Pritodip, yeah, see what's happening over here is, so I did not write that intentionally because that error I wanted to come, that it will come. See, let us go step by step. So let's see what's happening if you write it normally. So e-projects, let's define the projects array for each department of an employee who may be working in the bank or whatever. E.eProjects dot length. Oh, projects dot length I plus plus. I just okay. This is clear, right, for everyone? Why did I run to eProjects.length? Because I want to copy the eProjects array for the this eProjects array for the object E inside the current object, which is the E2 object. That is the this pointer, right? Okay. So I run it e.projects.length plus plus I plus plus. Let's copy it. Simple copying. I will write this. Okay, so it's e projects and I equal to e dot e projects.
Here
Now,
also we can mention this dot e projects I.
Great, yeah, no issues. No issues. This only means that you are referring to the current object. That's it. Within this class, anywhere you write this EID, ename or eProjects, right? These three variables, if you write within this class anywhere, that without using this or anything, that automatically means you refer to the current object, which is actually done by this. So this is implicit. Okay, only when you are keeping the same name, then it is difficult. Yeah, Ahmed, you can go ahead.
Except static variable, right?
Except static. Static means you are that this is not there. Right? This is not there at all. This is referring to the current object. Static methods does not have any object binding. Yeah.
Given, sir.
Ahmed.
So yes, sir. So in the primary constructor that we have defined, or the initial one, and in which it is a parameterized constructor basically. So in there also the project list should be kind of copied like deep copy, right? It's just passing over the reference. So shouldn't it be the same for the primary parameterized constructor also?
Yeah, that depends on your implementation. See what's happening over here when I'm creating the first object, right? Then it is
Yes,
actually pointing to this array's memory address.
Okay.
Now, if I change this array in the main method, that will also reflect over here. I mean, over in the objects, right?
Yes, sir.
But we are not doing that in this code, so it is okay, right? But
okay.
Yeah, it totally depends on your implementation. But ideally, in a real life project, that should not be done. Every time we are copying an array, it should be deep copy only.
One other question, sir.
Yeah.
So in the copy constructor, we can also use the this keyword, right? So use the this keyword to call the initial constructor itself. There has to, don't have to repeat the assignment again.
This part, right?
Yes, exactly. So just call this as a method, like we have a keyword for that also.
Exactly.
Yes.
No issues. You can
Yes.
do that.
All right. Yes.
You can do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
But here the constructor was already given. I think. Oh no, no constructor was given. Yeah, you can do that also. No issues. It will go.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So for those.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, just a second. Just a second. So for those who kind of skipped what Ahmed said, so he said that we can use deep copy over here only, right? That is, we can run this loop. Where is that? Yeah, we can run this loop directly over here, but we may have to make a little modification. That is something else. Okay, right? And then for this initial copying, we can use the constructor this. So maybe these two things we will not do, right? And sorry, we can call this constructor over here. Okay, but there is here it will give error because it's parameterized. So I have to write the parameters. Okay, so that's what I must say. Okay, even if you do not get it, it's okay. Ahmed, your doubt is clear, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. Someone was telling something. You can tell.
Sir, if we wanted to do a shallow copy for E1 and E2's E-projects, then we could just write a simply equal statement, right?
That's what I did, right? That's what I did earlier. That's what I did.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, see.
Yes, sir.
This is what I explained. Now here I took E1 and E2 because of this explanation. Okay, so that is done. E projects I have copied. Now this is actually a deep copy implementation of it.
One doubt I want to ask: how
Yeah.
do you decide that you wanted to make a deep copy in this by looking at the output, sir?
No, that's what I
Like,
explained, right? That's
how
what
did
I
you decide that in this particular program you need to looking at the output we can understand
You do not have to look at
decipher
the
like
output. You do not have to look at the output. Just tell me this thing. That's what I tried to explain over here.
yeah, this I understood, sir.
Sir,
But I
Yeah.
no, the for loop which you used,
Yeah.
you decided based on looking at the output, or what is it? We have to use a for loop in the line number 26, 27
Yeah. What is this?
for deep
Yeah.
copy.
Yeah, exactly. For deep copy means that I want to copy each value inside. Each value must be there inside, and there should be different memory location for both the objects, right? That is the idea of deep copy. Shallow copy means you are simply referring to the same memory location by multiple names.
Yes, I understood, sir. But
Yeah.
I
Why
just
for loop? Why
thought,
for loop? Yeah.
why for loop for this particular program? Is it after seeing the output
No,
we need
it's
to
not.
decide? Or?
It's not. You do not have to see the output itself. You can just see the. I mean, you are changing this value, na? So see how you decide output is you are changing this value. You are changing the mutator method, right?
Okay.
You
So
are
that is
having
individual values. Some values are getting changed. So looking at the mutator function, we decide certain values like the zeroth index, first index, second index. One of those are getting changed.
changed.
So
See here the mutator method is changing.
Yeah. So looking at the mutator, certain values are getting changed. We decide to go for
deep copy.
Okay, sure.
Deep copy. Okay. So
if mutator function is not there,
yeah,
then we can very well go ahead with shallow copy, or still we need deep copy.
Now that depends on the programming. Use case that you are trying to make. So if you want,
in the current situation itself.
In the current situation itself, then again it depends on the program. I would say use case only. See, the idea is this is an instance variable. So if you have defined a non-static instance variable, instance variable non-static, you have not written static over here. That always means that you want each object to have its own copy of e projects, right? And that should be independent. If that is the scenario, then you should do deep copy, because if you do shallow copy, then it would all point to the same memory location for all the objects, and if one object is making the change, everyone will be changed. But that is not correct according to the logical, I would say, logical definition of a class, right? It should be independent for each object. That is not happening, therefore you should go for deep copy. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that is the logical thing. But yeah, if you want it to change for all, if one object is changing, all the value should change, then you can use shallow copy. But that is again illogical, because then you can just have defined this field as a static field. Why are you going for this? Got the point? You just make it static and it would be same. Whenever one thing is changing, it will reflect for all of them. Okay, but there are in different use cases, you may need to apply shallow copy only. You do not have any other way. Maybe you want that to happen. So in that situation, you can use.
So Bhaskar, can I just give you an example where we may have to, so suppose it's a student class, okay, and then the first instance variable is the roll number, and second one is the e-name, and the third one is the subjects that he's taking in this current class. Okay, so for all students, the subjects will be the same, right? It is an array of string. And if you do a shallow copy, you change it for one student, it will be reflected for the other student also. Because, but the roll number and the name will be different. That will be like when you copy it, it is getting copied to a different location. Whereas the list of subjects, which is there as an array, right? That is actually for both students, it will be the same because they are studying the same class and they're studying the same subjects. So one subject changes, say maths 1 becomes maths 2 for one student, it will become so for the other student also. Then shallow copy is okay. Is that a good example, Bhaskar? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's use case dependent, anything.
Yeah,
this,
right.
This is a good example. Yeah.
So why do we need a shallow copy? Why should we ever go for a shallow copy? It's like especially this is with respect to the array, right? Arrays are like call by reference kind of, right? So when you are actually both, these are pointing to the same location. When you are doing the shallow copy, it's actually pointing to the same location. But you want a case where both of them should have their own independently allocated memory location so that the one change does not reflect in the other. Then we go for this deep copy. is that a deep copy? Yeah. Bimlesh, is that okay? Or
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So one example that that came to my mind is we discussed singleton pattern, right? That you should, if one object is created, then only other objects will not be allowed until that object is finished. Finished from the memory, something like that. So see, if you want to implement something like that on an array object where I will only allow one array object to exist at a time, not other array object. See, at that time, you can have multiple reference to the same memory location, but whenever one array object is created, that would get the first time memory, right? But again, if you want to create another array object, when the previous array object is already there and it has not finished its work, it's already there in the memory, then you can simply assign the reference to the same array object. You will not create any new array. You can simply assign the reference. So all the reference will simply point to the same memory location as long as the first array does not release the memory and goes out. Okay. So at that time, you may use shallow copy. So that was one idea. I mean, in singleton array, you may use that. There can be, as ma'am said, ma'am also give you a good example, real life examples when you want to use. But yeah, generally, it's if you are making a non-static field, then it is good to have deep copy because that was your idea. Otherwise, you could have simply declared it static. Okay. Okay. So we have defined this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kumar.
Yes. One thing can we say here that so making the deep copy, isn't it? We are doubling the memory. So suppose we are if talking about that.
You are doubling the memory, but that's what you need, right? I mean.
Yes. And the concept of this shallow copy and the deep copy is throughout the all programming languages same only.
Same.
Yeah. So whenever we send that some argument through that argument as the some variable. So whenever variable is normal, we make a different memory location. But whenever we send the array or any object or any dictionary, it's always locate to the same memory location.
Memory location.
I think it is due to the optimizing the space in the programming language. If suppose I have a one array and this size is that 50 MB or not 50 MB, 500 MB of the array size, and automatically if the compiler will be do that copy the entire thing twice, then it will be 1 GB. So instead of making that the deep copy automatically, they try to do point out that same memory location. They do looks like the different variable, but the same memory location.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. So yeah, you are correct. So generally by default, shallow copy is done, and most of the programming languages implemented it that way because of the reason. It is one probable reason that you want to optimize the space, and therefore I will not allow. By default, I will do shallow copy, but if you want a new space, so you should write the syntax explicitly to make a new space. Right? That provision is there, but you have to write explicitly. I mean, maybe a for loop or whatever, or maybe a new operator, whatever. So you have to write something extra in order to tell the compiler that, okay, I want a new space, and it's not something like the shallow copy where you directly point me to the available space. Yeah. So by default, it is shallow copy. You can say like that for saving space. Yeah, I mean, there are many multiple other reasons for this, but yeah, that can be one probable good reason, is what I think.
Yeah, Bhaskar, so we had one practice question, no, in which we are doing that sorting, remember? So there the array is actually passed as an argument. So there it's the same array. So once you sort it, it is actually in the same location that it gets sorted.
Yeah.
There's one, I don't know. Okay, we'll come to that. Okay.
Yeah, even in Python, while I don't know, I know PDSA is not a requirement for this course, but those of you who are come from PDSA, you must have done sortings like merge sort and all. So when you pass an array, I mean, it's a recursive function. So you pass it into one function, a part of it is sorted, and then it comes back to the other function, and all this function calls this recursion tree, right? So it will actually still keep the array. I mean, it will make the changes for the array in all the parts, right? It's just one memory location for the same array that you are passing part by part and modifying. So that's why it is a reference access. So all these kind of codes, you use the reference. Yeah.
Yes, I think in the Python there is a two different method is defined for that. One is that the sorted array, and one is the dot sort. So dot sort is that same array, it's modified, and sorted array returning a new array with different memory allocation.
But you can do merge sort in one place, right? I mean, you can do that. There is an algorithm for doing that. I mean,
Yes,
you
there
may
is
not
a
need the extra space. Okay, so there is a good question also that you can do merge sort without taking extra space. That is also there.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, check that out if you means. Yeah, you can check that out how to do that. There is a simple mathematical tool of division and the remainder. By doing that, you can actually do merge sort without, I mean, yeah, without taking an extra space. So order of one merge sort in terms of space. Okay, so a fun exercise, you can do that. Those of you are interested in algorithm. So this part is over. Employee 2 equal to new employee. Pritodip, I will address your doubt. Let the error come first. Okay, so this line. Okay, e1 dot mutator is defined already. We know mutator method was given in the code, so no need to make any change. And then simply a display method is there. Let's define that quickly, and then I will address one syntactical issue. Public void display. Right. So basically, you will print the system.println. Pardon me, I'm copying the code. I'm going to write that. Yeah. From the solution. Okay, you can do this kind of slash n, and wherever required, you can just write println also. I mean, that depends on the, just see the output, and this display method always do by seeing the output, the test case, whatever it wants, do that. Okay, so let's run it and see what happens. So it's giving an error. Where is the error? I don't. That error will come for here, but I want that to show. Just a second. Type employee. Okay, this is something else. Sorry. Here employee was there, no? So it's giving a clash. See, this is the idea of package. Here I am getting an error, right? Because of this employee class. Why I am getting? Because if you see the left panel, in test 1 and test 2, both of them are there in the test package. You can see this package test, right? Both of them are there in the test package. I am getting this error because employee class is there in test 1, right? In the same package. Again, here in the same package, I am writing employee class. So the system is getting confused which employee class actually I want to call when this is broken down into, I mean, the object code, right? So it is whenever it is executed. At that point, it is getting confused. So a better way to deal with is how to deal with this kind of problem. We will discuss in the packages week. But now I will just simply change the name to something else. So let's make a small employee. I need to make a lot of change.
No, one more is there in copy constructor.
Yeah.
Sir, so in this Eclipse, the compiler is reading at the package level, reading each program at the package level. Because though you have kept the test2.java active, it's still confused with the and comparing with the test1.java. So the test1.java is not active in your system, in your current working, whatever you are working. You have kept the test2.java as active. You are running only that program, but still it's taking the decision at the package level again.
Yeah. It
Compiling
always
at the package
level. Exactly. That's happening because this is there, na, package test.
Okay.
If I write package default and move it to somewhere else, it's always in the package. So not only in Eclipse, this is the idea of package. When you define a package, wherever you define, if you define it inside a package, then it will always work similarly. It will give you error. So just a second. Okay, now there should be a null pointer. Okay, I did not give the inputs. Sorry. What was the input? The first is a string. So whatever E003. Okay. The second is a name. Okay. So what is this? We wrote E003 Bob. These two are the lines, input lines, right? S dot next line. And then I got a null pointer exception. What's happening now? Why did it come? Null pointer exception means you can see that java.lang dot null pointer exception, right? Null pointer exception means that somewhere some reference which you are using in the code that is actually set to null value, but you are trying to use that null value in order to do some work. Now that is not legal, right? So I write something like this. So let's assume employee 1 n, let's say n equal to null, fine, and simply I write n dot whatever the one of the method of, yeah, so let's take eid, and suppose I assign some value ast. See, I write this statement. It's not giving any compiler error. Because why it is not giving any compiler error? Because this is what the compiler sees is only the reference type, right? It does not see what is object and what is there any object at all or not. It only sees the reference type. What is the reference type of n? It is employee 1, right? And I'm using the reference type employee 1's member. Do employee 1 has a EID variable? Yeah, employee 1 has a EID variable. Since EID variable is there in employee 1 and n is a reference type of employee 1, therefore I can access EID using n. No issues. That's why compiler says it's correct. But whenever you run this code, it will give you null pointer exception. Okay. Whenever you run this code, even if I delete all this, the original reason which was happening here, because of which we got null pointer exception, even if I delete all this, just if I run this code, then also you will get null pointer exception. The reason for that is only when you are going into runtime and you are trying to allocate the memory from heap, right? At that time, it is seeing all the memory allocation of dynamic memory allocation or using new and all happens during the runtime, right? All objects are created during runtime. It is not created during compile time. Compile time, you have only the reference, this variable. Okay. So in runtime, it says, okay, n is a reference variable, that is fine. Employee class 1, that is also fine. But there is no memory location, also known as object, created or allocated for this employee n reference variable. It is not referring to any object or any valid memory location that is allocated to it, right? So that's why at runtime this has been figured out, and it is giving then this access of EID is meaningless. You do not have any object at all. You are simply having an empty vessel using which you want to do some work, right? So that's why it is giving a null pointer exception. It will give a null pointer exception. So there is the idea of a null pointer exception, that you actually have null value in some reference, but you are trying to do some work using that. Now let's see what's happening in our code. You see that we are getting a null pointer exception. You can see the line number. It's on 37 number line. So let's go over there and see what's happening. You see here I am getting 37 number line is getting a null pointer exception. So this e projects I or this e projects I, either this e projects or this e projects, right? Either of them should be null, right? Either of them should be null value. Now this e projects, this we are taking in, right? We can simply print it. You will see that if I write a print statement after this allocation, right? E1 dot e projects, right? Let's print the first value only. And let me comment this out as of now. Okay, so it will anyway print, no issues. Let me run the code, see what happens. See, P001 is printed. After that exception is coming, that is okay, but P001 is printed. That means the E1 objects, E projects are not null. I mean, whenever you are passing this E1 into E, that means this E projects value are not null because you checked it using a print statement. Okay, so therefore it is correct. That means the only option is this C projects. That must be null. Okay. Now this was a troubleshooting. Now the reason for this, why it is not null without using system.println, how you can logically understand it is not a null value. And this is the null value, the left side. Okay. Whenever you are defining an array in Java, right? So here we are defining it using this syntax. So whenever I'm writing P001, P002, P003, right? I have mentioned that all the values that are residing in the array and what is the type of the array, everything I have mentioned. So the compiler has enough information to know how many elements are there inside this project array, because I'm defining in the run, I mean statically, right? I'm statically defining. So it knows how much space I must allocate in the project in order to store the project array. Compiler knows that. Compiler, okay? In compilation time, compiler only knows that because that is indicated in the code. So in compile time only, it will say that why should I wait for runtime? I have all the information. I know how much space to allocate. So I will allocate the space. Compiler will only allocate. My question to you all is, from which area of the memory will it allocate the space for this project? Compiler. Will it be heap? Will it be stack? Will it be some other place, maybe data segment from, or will it be just local memory? What is the space from where it allocates this memory?
Is it data segment, sir? I think it should be data segment.
It is data segment?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so in data segment, we store static variable and global variables. Is it static or global?
No, sir, it is not.
Yeah, it's not. That's why if you go outside the main method, will you be able to access project?
No.
Not you are not passing any reference at all. If you pass reference, that is fine. But if you do not pass any reference, can you access directly project?
No, sir.
This one will be in stack.
Exactly. This is in stack inside the activation record for main function. Correct? So this is just like a simple local variable like ID or name, which is in the second and third line. I mean line number 50 and line number 52. The string name and string ID. The ID and name are simply local variables. Like project is also an array, which is also a local variable of main method. And all these local variables are taken from the activation record of the stack of the activation record of the stack. Inside the stack where the activation record is there, from that activation record, memory is taken. These are local variables. The main point over here is the compiler has enough information of how much space to take. So you have defined P1, P2, P3, that's it. I don't want anything else. So I just want this much space. So the compiler has the information, it's allocating the space. But my question is, what's happening over here? Did you tell how much space to allocate? How many data members you need? What is how much? Yeah, how many values will you store in each project? You are not defining any static array, right? It's just a
Reference.
It's just a reference of type string array. So it will refer to a memory location where you are storing an array of string type. That's the idea. So you did not tell anything. So compiler do not have any information about how much space to allocate. It does not have any information about space at all, right? So therefore this has to be allocated at runtime. depending upon the object specification, you have to allocate the space for this array. This is just a reference. It's not the space. It's just a reference, right? Like we discussed, employee. If I write employee one, write this employee 1n. So this is just a reference, not an object. If I put equal to new employee 1, then this is calling a constructor, and that is actually an object. So this is basically allocating the space, the right hand side. The highlighted part is allocating the space, right? So we need to allocate this reference some space. So you see, when I'm initially calling E1 object, I'm passing the project array inside this constructor, right? Where I am actually making eProjects equal to P. So that means eProjects is referring to the memory location of this array, to the memory location of this array, right? That means it has space. For which object? E1 object I am doing that. Because for E1 object I called the parameterized constructor. Got it? Parameterized constructor, this one. I'm copying this eProjects equal to P. In P I have passed this array, right? Project. That's why it is pointing to the same memory location, and that's why it is not null. But while defining E2, I did not call the parameterized constructor. Did I call? I did not call. This is the parameterized constructor, right? Yeah. I did not call that. I am calling the copy constructor. Yeah. I'm calling the copy constructor. In copy constructor, what is happening? Did I allocate this array? This one, did it go? Yeah, this one. I have not worked with this array at all. What I am doing is I'm copying the value of the eProjects array. eProjects is this employees array, E1's array, right? I'm copying the value of this array into the eProjects of E2. But E2 eProject, I have not allocated any memory. It is simply this open reference type. I have never copied this. I have never written any statement like this where I would copy the statically defined P0, P1, P2 array into eProjects array of E2. Neither am I calling that constructor, nor have I mentioned any. I mean, how much space has to be allocated for E2's eProject array? That I have not told. That's why it is just an empty reference, and I need to allocate space for it. Therefore, that's why it is giving a null pointer exception, because it is actually null. You are putting this value into a blank memory look. It's not a memory location. It's into a blank vessel. Right? It's not at all a memory location where you need to place the value. So at first, let's define the memory location. We know that in runtime we have to allocate memory using new operator. So how can we do that? That's how you define arrays memory in runtime. I will write eProjects, right? Because eProjects is already there. Okay. Then the syntax is I will use the new operator in order to allocate the dynamic memory. Fine. Then I will use the type, just like classes, right? You define the class, I mean the class name, and then that constructor call, which is also the class name. So similarly string, because string was the type. Now here it is an array, so the difference would be you have to put the square brackets, not the constructor call, right? Oh, sorry. And
So
here you will mention,
can you directly assign the value over here?
Yeah, so you can do that after allocating the, I mean, assign the value means?
I mean, whenever I am declare new is using, here I can assign the value or not?
See, if you write over here the number of cells you want, and maybe you can define a local, I don't know whether the syntax works or not. I don't think you can do that. I mean, common default value for all cells is not allowed. Right here you have to define how many cells you want, right? That is, you have to give. I mean, you need to tell in runtime that how many cells I want, so that you have to give over here. Okay, so here,
here the actually I saw somewhere by
yeah,
using second bracket
yeah.
we can pass the value
So I tried that.
outside of the third bracket, but not inside.
Here, right? So I tried
Yeah,
that only.
no, so, we have to use the braces, not the first bracket.
Third
First
bracket.
Second bracket.
Okay. Second bracket.
Yeah. Now we can
Let me
use
just
the.
check. Oh, this string, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
What is it saying?
No. Five is not required. I mean, if you just directly pass the value, it will.
Oh, acha. Oh, okay. That we can do. That we can do. Okay. Got it. So that's an array, right? Yes, that's again a static initialization. Okay. No, that is fine. That you can do. That is simply a normal static initialization at runtime. But you cannot do that right here because you do not have the value. Value will you have to access using the object only.
No, I do have the value.
I mean, then you have to write e projects 0, e projects 1.
Yeah.
That is a bad way to go. So, I mean, otherwise, why are you using loops for the programs?
Yeah.
you can just write this.
No, actually, the project value is changed, then this will be changed.
Yeah, that will be changed, but you have to write e projects 0, e dot e projects 1. I mean, that is not.
Yes. No,
and different objects may have different length of projects. No.
Yeah. So if there are 100 values, you have to go on. Okay. Yeah. This is just like statically determining at runtime. So that is fine.
Or if I write e projects directly, that will not take within some bracket.
No, I don't think so. Because how will it know? You may be wanting to put the I plus 1th index into ith index. Okay. You can check that. Okay. That syntax you can check. So let us complete this and then maybe I will check that.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Please.
So basically, what is the intention of this line is I am creating the memory location for the eProjects array for E2 object. E1 object is pointing to that statically defined array, this array, right? Using the parameterized constructor. Okay, so what is the length of this? How many cells I want? Deep copy I want to do, and that's why I am copying the array for E1 into E2, right? Since I'm copying E1's content into E2, that means I want as many cells as is there in E1 for the E2 array. So simply write E dot E projects dot length. Right. So this is actually allocating the memory for your E2 objects, E2's this
dot projects.
E2's E projects array. Right? For E1 it is not required. I'm telling this again and again because many of you will confuse this for the first time. Once you get the idea, it would be very easy topic. E1 will not be null. E1 you do not have to define these things. The reason for that is you are directly copying this project by using the parameterized constructor. But in E2, while we are defining E2, we are not calling the parameterized constructor, right? This one we are not calling. We are calling the copy constructor. When we are inside the copy constructor, we are not passing any other, I mean, like this project static array, we are not passing. Statically, we are not passing. Dynamically, we have to create. That's why we are creating the eProjects memory dynamically.
So this e.eprojects.length, this is E1.
eProjects.length. This is E1. This is E1. Why this is E1? Because what is E? Let's go back, backtrack. Backtracking in PDS you all have learned. So this is E is there. So the E is the parameter over here. So what is passed in E? Whenever I'm calling employee E1, I'm passing E1, right? E1 is passed in E. These two are just the same reference, right? I mean, not the same reference, the reference for the same memory location, right? And E1 object is already declared using this array, right? By using the parameterized constructor. So this will be called only for E2. This constructor would be called only for E2, right? For E1, we are calling another constructor.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So this is heap memory, because we are using new. New means heap memory. Whenever you see new, that means dynamic time and heap memory. sorry, not dynamic time, dynamic memory and runtime. Okay, so now it will not give you any error. Okay, fine. So you can do like that, and you can see just one thing, that if I do deep copy, then you can change any mutator or whatever you can do, but that change would not be reflected. Okay, so see, let's see what the mutator was doing. What the mutator was doing, see, it was making the ename, it appending Mr. with the ename, right? So it was appending Mr. with the ename. For which object? For E1 object, right? And what it was doing, it was also making the E project 0 equal to null, right? For which object? E1 object, E1 dot mutator. But here we got the value 0 for E2 because we are displaying E2, right? For E2's display, we got P001. That means although we changed the E1's E project array, but still we got E2's E projects array as same P001. I mean, yeah, so it is unchanged. It is P001, right? That means it is, these two are separate memory location. If I simply write E1 dot display, it will show you null. You see, this is null, but this is still P001. This has not changed. Got the idea? That is deep.
Can you show me the display method?
Yeah. Display method is simply display.
How is that? How is that? The P001, that those three values are getting printed in the next line, and it's ending with a colon symbol. Colon. The last line, how it is getting printed in the next line, not in the same line as E projects, and also it's ending with a colon symbol. Okay, in this system dot out dot print s plus colon, that is the one extra additional thing.
Yeah. It's just simply printing the value with a colon in between. And I mean, since we have used print method, for the next iteration, it will go to the next line using print.
And it is getting printed not in the same line as C projects. It is getting printed in the next lines below the projects. Below projects, the new line is getting printed. So are we not? Don't we need to put /n and also?
No. See, yeah, what is happening over here is println. How it works, you have to see that whenever you write println, what it will do is it will print the value which you are putting, and then it will go to the next line.
Oh, automatically it will go.
Automatically it will go to the next line. Okay, let me just give you one example. You will see how this is happening. So let us delete this println. Let us keep it print. Fine. Now see what happens. Oh. Okay, see what's happening over here. E001 is there, ID, fine. After them, Richard Feynman name is coming. So you can get the idea that first you are printing ID, that is fine, but then it is not going to the new line. So how println works is it will first print what is given. After that, it will go to the new line. So since here we have used println, since line number 22 has println, therefore only projects is printed in the next line. Otherwise, projects would be printed over here only. I mean, in the same line as name. Okay. Yeah. So the printing happens first. Next line happens later. Yeah.
There is another print like the instead of println dot So there is one println as well as there is a simple print also in Java. Two statements are possible.
Yeah, that is what I've written.
Okay, I got it, sir. I got it. With a simple print statement, it will be printed in
same line. Yeah. Okay. Okay, fine. So this is done.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. So if all of you concentrated on this question particularly, as Mr. Dingesh was saying, I would not discuss other questions of this week because, I mean, not this week. Just one question I will discuss. And all other questions are basically, I would say, subset, not proper subset, because there are some algorithmic questions so that you can actually try. But Java oriented questions, syntax oriented question, I think these questions has all the parts: copy constructor, shallow copy, deep copy, and also parameterized constructor. So you can refer this thing and you would be able to answer. If you have any further doubts, we will discuss on this course. You can post over there. Fine. One question particularly I want to actually address. That is regarding the, in this week only, week 2 only. What is that? Practice or graded? This practice, no, graded. It's graded only. Yeah, this one. So I just want to, so all of you have done this, right? Any doubt in this? This is more of your introductory coding in Java. No difficult constructor and all like that. You have to define a function which will do this sum. So similar to your Python and all, you must have written code similar to this. But my question is, what is the least time in which you can do this solution? I will not take time on this. Maybe just one of you can unmute yourself and tell me the answer. What is the least time? Those who have done PDSA, this is only for those who have done PDSA, not for everyone. If you are interested, you can listen. But yeah, for those who have done PDSA, they should answer. What is the minimum amount of time in terms of complexity in which you can answer this question in a program? I mean,
n square.
N square. Great. Is there any optimization that you can do? Give me. I'm giving you a hint. There is a mathematical optimization.
So we can solve this series.
You can solve this series. You can have a general form, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So I will post on Discourse about this. So we'll not do this in session. Okay, but I will expect all of you to just try to solve this. It's quite easy. You can just try this. So the general term is the summation of up to n, right? The Tn would be summation of n, right? So summation of n formula is, in maths you did all those things, na? I hope. Maths 1, stat 1, maths 1 or maths 2, I hope you would have done something.
Yes, sir.
Right? Yeah. So just giving you a hint on this, small hint. I will not discuss in detail. The general term of this formula is Tn equal to the summation, right? Summation of up to n. Tn is the summation up to n. That is summation up to n. Right? So this is the general formula. We know that summation of n into n plus 1 by 2. Right? So Tn, this is the general term. Right? Now your question asks you to do the summation of Tn, the general term, right? Summation of Tn is your answer. That is, you have to do this summation. Try this. This is again very easy. Not I. N equal to whatever. 1 to m, let's say m. You get the formula, whatever formula you get, you directly program that into your program and simply put the value of n. You will get the answer in how much time? What would be the time complexity?
Constant.
Constant time. Okay, just try this formula. This is again easy. Just a hint, solve this. So it will be something like n square by 2 plus n by 2 whole summation. So this will be something like 1 by 2 summation n square plus summation n. You know what is the summation of n square, you know what is the summation of n. Okay, summation of n is again n into n plus 1 by 2, and summation of n square is 1 by 6. I'm not writing the whole thing, n into n plus 1 plus 2n plus 1 by 6. So you can simply put this formula and get the result. That would give you order of one type. Okay.
So it's better to use formula than to use two loops.
If you are writing on the basis of optimization, it is always, you will always go for lesser time, right? So it is order of one time.
But one thing here, sir, that actually programming is not meant to solve that declarative way. So we
can have views on it, but yeah, if you are doing some task in order of one time, which would take much more time, that is actually better.
That's the pure mathematical declarative.
The pure mathematical, yeah, declarative. Okay, so one little thing I would like to discuss is that equals class, not class, equals method. This is, I think, not graded, practice, right? Practice programming, second one. So this is week 3 practice. Week 3's deadline is on 23rd. So I will briefly discuss this, only one question. Yeah. No. Just a second, there are two practice. Was that a graded one? Oh no, it is the practice. Practice program assignment.
All these practice assignment deadline should be 3-4 months ahead.
Okay, but I don't know. Okay, we will check that out. See, the issue is our understanding was the private test case would only be showed to you when the deadline is over, right?
Yes, sir.
So if the deadline is not over, you cannot say the private test cases, whether your code is working for all the cases or not, that you cannot judge. But you can always copy and keep it on your local machine, the code, whatever template code is given, and try that, work upon that. But that even if you do not get the private test cases, how will you be able to, make that whether your code satisfy all the corner cases and all? Right. As ma'am told, na, that was the basic idea. But we will see if it is possible to somehow show the private test cases by not having the deadline. I will not go into this explanation step by step, but only the important part that I will discuss is regarding this overriding. What is the name? Test 2. What I'm doing? Test 2 is over. So this is the code that has been given to you. You have a point class, right? And let's come to the main method again, the normal way, where we are taking the inputs. Fine. You see that we are creating a new object. There is a simple constructor call. So basically that we have to define a constructor. We will not define the total thing. Public point. And obviously this is a parameterized constructor because you are passing x1 and y1. So let's take int x1 comma y. Done. Just assign x equal to y1, y equal to y1. Sorry, x equal to x1, y equal to y1. Fine. Though these two methods would be okay, these two line is okay using the same constructor call. Okay. Now here we are seeing P1 dot equals P2. What is this equals method? Okay, so we must define it, equals. So using the same idea, see, equals is called using P1, that is, it means it's an instance method. So we have to define an instance. Sorry, we have to make it non-static, right? So it will be something like public. Now it is returning a value or not? See, we are putting this P1 dot equals into a if clause, right?
Yeah, here returning a value, Boolean should be
That's
Boolean.
when it is returning a value and it should be Boolean because we are putting it into if clause. If only takes true or false value, and therefore you can understand that this is a Boolean type, a Boolean return type function. So let's write Boolean, public Boolean, then the program, function name equals, and obviously then the parameter is
Point reference.
point reference. So let's write that. Point
No, it should be inside the first bracket.
Point P. Okay. What is the name? Point. Okay. Equals is there. Okay. Now let's see why it is giving this red error, because I'm not returning any value. Boolean is the return type. So as soon as we write return, it would eliminate the error. Okay. So what is the work of equals? You see that it's whatever when P1 dot equals P2, if it returns true, we are printing P1 is equal to P2. I mean, yeah. So the value is same. So that means you have to override this equals method. It's given in the comments also. Achha, why we are writing override, that we will come. But as of now, you have to make this equals method, implement this equals method so as to compare between the two point objects, right? So let's do that. How to compare? We will simply compare x and y of each of them. So this dot x equal to this dot, sorry, p dot x
And yeah, this dot y equal to p dot y.
Yeah, this dot y equal to p dot y. I will simply put it inside a if, right, and I will return true, else return false. Now one good practice is, so this is the idea that you are getting equals and all fine, but there is one little thing that I would like to tell. That's why this information has been already given to you. I mean, so assume this comment would not have been there. This is the thing that you would have done, right? But this information has been given to you, although it does not matter a lot, but still it's important. See, here it is given override. So why the question of overriding is coming? Overriding means in the child class, you are re-implementing, you are defining another implementation of the same method which is there in the parent class. That is the meaning of overriding, right? So that means this equals method, it must be there in parent class. But is there any parent class of point? We have not written anything like class point extends parent class or extend whatever, right? We have not written that. So what does this mean? How does it make sense? There is no parent class, but still we are saying overriding. Yeah, go ahead, tell me.
Actually, when we equate two items, it defaultly calls the item dot equals in bracket other item. So we are overriding that one.
Item dot, okay. What is item? Overriding means you must have a superclass child class relation, right? So I'm just asking, if this is the child class, then what is the superclass?
Here no superclass.
Yeah, I could not get it.
No, here no superclass is different.
No superclass is there, then why it is overriding?
Overriding for the object class.
Yeah. Remember we discussed this, that object class is by default the superclass of all the classes in Java. So object is like the head, like it is like the head to which all the or maybe a better example would be it is the root inverted where all the classes are linked, right? So you have the object class, and from that object class you have all the inherited classes implicitly, even if you do not write anything. So if you declare a class like class whatever, okay, fine. So this also is actually deriving implicitly. This implicitly means it is extending object. So by definition, object class, object, there is one system class that is implicitly defined inside Java. This object class is the superclass, implicit superclass, or by default the superclass of all the classes in Java. Whatever class is already there that is related to the system's working, and whatever class you will define as a part of your program, all the classes are subclasses or child classes of the object class. By definition, even if you do not write, it is by definition implicitly this will happen.
So Java doesn't allow us to create any, I mean, totally superclass like object, right?
No. I mean, if you write object as the same name, it will not allow.
No.
Please repeat on those on this part, please.
Yeah.
No, whatever the class I am defining, so it is by default it is extending from the object, right?
Object class, exactly.
So if I want to create my own library type by using, I mean, without using the object, that I cannot do in the Java environment.
No, I could not get you. Library type means?
Okay, I mean, I don't want to use the Java object.
You cannot go like that. You have to have object.
Okay.
I don't know. Is there any, I don't know, maybe some trap or pitfall, I don't know, but maybe as per my knowledge, I think there is no way or no sideways which you can take. Okay, you can search it. Is there any way to do that? But I don't think there is a way, because another feature is actually related to this object class, and that's why it is the superclass of all classes. I don't think.
Yeah, no, actually, my point is that superclass, I mean, the object class has been written by the whatever, the Sun or Raquel. So if I want to replace these things, I want to build my own library type.
No, you cannot have that. You can, what you can do is, see, they have, that's the beauty of polymorphism, right? They have given this object class, which is the implicit superclass of all the classes in Java. But if you want to have your own implementation, right? What you want?
Yeah.
You want your own implementation. That's it.
Yes.
You have overriding. Do that. Right? Extend the methods of object class, override it. That's what we are actually trying to do using overriding equals. That's why override equals is there, because equals is basically a method of object class. It is defined in the object class. Right? So what we want to do over here is we want to override the equals with our own implementation. Right? Generally, we can have a string, something like ABC, a string type. There is a capital string type value equals maybe whatever, some string variable str, or maybe the opposite way you can do. Fine.
Yeah.
So where is the definition of this equals method that you are using? That is inside object class. And since this is a, so you can have a class type variable over here, and you can use the equals method. But whenever I'm putting an object person, right? So the strings equal implementation object class, no. What I have to do when I have strings? But when I have a class like person equals another person object, right? Let's say P2. So then object class does not know what do you mean by this? Because person type I don't know, string type I can know. I have the implementation. So when you write equals for string type, the implementation for deciding what to do now is there inside the object class for equals method. Right? It is there defined inside. But for person type or any custom type that you want to use, the object class does not know what to do. So therefore, what you want to do is you basically want to inherit the equals method which is there and override it and give your own implementation. So this is what I want to do, right? And then it will do that. So if you want to customize, you can always do that by using polymorphism, by overriding. But totally eradicating the system's own object class, I don't think there is any other way. You can check that, but I don't know. Okay, and because the idea of object class is to do some internal works that are there, and I don't think you can bypass that. Yeah, to Mr. Bimlesh, you are saying repeat this thing. So this simple one statement, you can just that whatever class that is already there in Java, which you may use for some features, right? Which is some system generated classes, like maybe scanner class, right? We are writing scanner. See? We are writing the scanner sc equal to, that means there is a class called scanner, right? We are calling the constructor of scanner class. So scanner class is there inside the system. Println, we discussed about this println, right? System.out.println. We discussed about the print stream classes, right? What is
basically inbuilt methods, kind of
inbuilt methods, inbuilt classes. These inbuilt classes, as well as test2, example, person, employee, whatever class point, whatever classes you as a programmer you are defining, whatever class is there, the super class is object class implicitly. You do not have to define that. It is implicitly there. It will happen for all the classes.
every class is also an object itself.
We will come to that in next week. And I mean in week 5, whether it is an object or not, whether what it is. But that is not correct to say using this object notation. The idea of object classes, it's the super class of all the classes. So all the class that you are deriving, even if you have not implemented any inheritance, it is actually there into a single level inheritance with object class. Got the idea? So point class, we have not implemented any inheritance, but it is actually inheriting from object class, right? Implicitly. So it is not object. Inheritance is not object, right? Inheritance is just you are inheriting from another superclass, right? So point, it's something like this. That's all. Right? Extends object. Even if you write it, see, it's not giving you error because that is implicit.
But this object is in the language itself.
It's in the actually java.lang package, which is implicitly. Once we discuss package, then also we'll focus on this. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah. Which is implicit. There is one package which is implicitly imported that you do not have to import like scanner, right? So that is lang package. We will discuss these things. Okay. As of now, just think that object class is the parent class of all classes implicitly, and this equals method is defined in the object class, and that is the only reason you can write str1 dot equals str2, right? But here it is point. Here str is not there, so it's not string. So you need to provide its implementation. That's what you are doing. You are simply providing the implementation. Now this is more of a, I mean, I would say a more knowing thing rather than a conceptual thing. The idea is object class is superclass of all classes, right? So therefore it must be of some type which can accept any reference or any object. It must have an parameter of some type which can accept any reference variable, any variable, I mean any object type. Sorry, any object you can put into a object class. I know this is confusing. So what we want to say is object class is the superclass of all class, right? Now suppose, forget about all this. If you have class A, right, and then class B extends A, fine, and then inside the main method, what I am doing is I'm writing A obj equal to new B. It's a correct syntax, right? Forget about this error, that is I am not writing the main error. Okay, so there is a correct syntax. A object equal to new B I can write, right? That is I can store the subtype object into a super type reference. You have learned this in week 3. See, because we can do this, that means a superclass reference variable can store any object of subclass. Now, while implementing the object class, right? While implementing the object class, they knew that equals method would be inherited by some class, and you may require, the programmers may require to override it, right? So therefore, just imagine while defining the object class, what would have been the syntax of this method? Public equals return is boolean, equals return is boolean. I'm going over here. What I would put over here as parameter? The idea is I must put something like that which would accept any object, because later at some point of time I do not know that whether point class would be there or employee class would be there or what class would be there. I am the son or whoever defined the object class, the Java system programmer. who is defining the object class, right? And I don't know which person will write what class name in the later point of time while using Java, and what will what parameter will it pass, whether it pass class object like point, employee, person, I don't know. So I must have something which will be able to accept any kind of object. Now what is the trick to do that? You simply put object. Now in this object O variable, I can put any object. Why? Because object is the superclass, and we just discussed this example, right? That if we have class A and class B extends A, then I can write A obj equal to B. This is a valid statement because I can put subtype object into supertype reference. That's the same concept we are applying over here. Since object class is itself the superclass of all classes, therefore I can use the object class reference variable, and later point of time, whenever someone is overriding it, he can put person object, he can use point object, whatever is the name of his class, he can put. Right, new, sorry. All of this will be satisfied.
The default object equals implementation would be comparing the references, right?
What?
Whether the reference is the same or not, right? That would be the implementation, the default implementation.
Yeah, you are passing it now. See, here you are passing point object.
No, I'm saying that if we don't override, then in that case, the object equals would be called for every other object. I mean, object of any type. So what would? Yeah, exactly. So what would be the default implementation? Would it be comparing whether the references are equal or not? That what is that the implementation?
No. References are equal or not is compared by equal to. It will it has multiple implementation that has been defined, right? So it can do for strings and all.
So I was asking that what would be the general implementation? Like I defined a class and there is a equals method there already inherited by the object superclass. So what would be its implementation by default if I don't override? That is what I want to ask. So would it be returning false for everything, or what would be the what would be the output?
Yeah, so see, if you pass a string, then it will check for your value. I mean, the reference value. If you pass, if you pass an object, then it will check for the reference value. If the two addresses are same,
addresses. Yes, that is what I was saying. Okay, all right.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I did not get that first time. So
okay, all right, no problem. Yeah.
If you pass a reference, then it will simply check whether the two
references are same or not. All right, thank you.
Yeah. And if you want to exactly compare on the basis of character by character string, then it will give you, I mean, you can use compare method and all. Compare, ignore cases, those methods are right. You can do that. Okay. So therefore, object O is the syntax of it, right? And that's why you can, this is not an erroneous statement. This is actually working. So it's better when it is said that you have to override it, it's better you preserve the syntax, and that's why you will write object. Okay, object P you write, and now since this is an object class, right? I mean object type, therefore you must make this object type into a type which is the native type, that is point. Yeah. So after you can you can just copy paste this. You can also save it somewhere else, that is also allowed. Will it work like that? No, it's not working, so better save it. Point P equal to point 1. Fine. So now you can do that. So you can also use point, but since it is overriding, it's a good way that you preserve the syntax which is there. That's why. Otherwise, if you do not know this thing, then it is difficult to understand it should be object and all. Right. So yeah. So that's why I did not tell that earlier. Conceptually, you can use the class object, but actually it is object. Okay. So this is the main thing. One part. Also, another part is that toString overriding, right? So toString is another method which is there in the object class, which is also inherited, and toString is called when you write this thing, this statement, system.out.println, and you are writing p1. So system.out.println can print a number, can print a string, right? But whenever you are print an object, right, p1, now the println method does not know how to deal with it. What it will do is it will simply return the, that address kind of thing. Right? Not the address, the hash of that address. Okay, so you do not want that. You want to print the values which are there in P1, right? That means these X and Y. So what you can do is whenever println is executed, system.out.println and the object. So let's forget about these two as of now. Let's assume these are not there. Whenever this statement will be executed, system.out.println, and you are passing an object, right, of a custom class that you created. Okay, so this object, what it happens is the toString method is called implicitly. This toString method is called implicitly on this object. That is, whenever this is executed, the system internally executes another line which is p1 dot toString. Okay, so this is implicitly executed. Okay, this you will not write. Whenever you are writing println, this will happen implicitly for an object type and also for other types also. But other types also toString is defined just like equals. toString is defined in object class and therefore it will work according to that. But always the toString method would be called whenever you are printing using println or print whatever. Okay. So since p1.toString is called, but there is no implementation of toString for particularly an object of point type, therefore it returns the hash code. Any reference you pass, it will return the hash code. But always you can do is, but what you can do always is you can override the toString method because it is again object class method just like equals. So public toString. Oh, sorry, it's returning the
public string.
What?
It will be a string, right?
Yeah.
It will be a string. Yeah.
No, sorry, I was just writing that. The return type you were saying, na?
Yeah, yeah.
Inside toString, I'm not passing anything, something like that. I'm just writing p1.toString, right? And I'm returning the string value. So I will return some string parameter over here. So that I will write later. Okay. So see, what I want over here is the output. Where is that output? Let's go over there. Now this I will not do. This is on you. You see, it's printing 1020. Right? This string 1020 and equal to is there inside the part of this part.
Yeah, with the println it was there.
This part is there. Equal to. I deleted it for showing. So this part is already there. So left hand side of this not equal to and equal to is this equal to and not equal to is the values 100 and 200. So basically you have to use the X and Y values, make a string like this and then work upon that. Got the idea?
Yeah.
So
if it's a 3D point, then accordingly it has to be written.
Yeah, how whichever way you want. It's your class, your data members, your toString. Override it, do whatever you want. Just keep the basic prototypes in. That is the advantage of this dynamic nature in Java.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Will you please explain line number 11 in the code that you written into Eclipse?
Which line?
Line number 11 in Eclipse code that you just shown.
Yeah, just a second. Line number 11. Eclipse code.
This point P1 equal to point P. Just explain.
This is just a typecasting. See, object P is a superclass variable, right? Object is a superclass of point, implicit superclass. That's we discussed.
Yes.
So since object is a superclass, when I am assigning, I will use the point, right? P1 dot x would be, this is not overriding. X is a reference, I mean, a normal variable, right? Y is a normal variable. Sorry, this Y. So, okay. So if I'm writing dot y dot x, that means the variable which I'm using to access x and y must be of the class type, that is point type. Otherwise, how will it know that x and y is for point object, right? So P1 must be point type because x and y are point classes values. So therefore, the variable which is used for accessing x and y should be a point class reference, not an object class reference. It should be a point class reference. But here it was a point object class reference, right? We got an object P. So I cannot write P dot y directly because that would be erroneous. Object class does not have any x and y, right? So if I write P dot y, that means object class has some variable one, which is wrong. Object class does not have any variable like y. I must have this P allocated to the point class. But that's why what I'm doing is I'm just defining a variable of point class, and in that I'm typecasting the object class P to the point. Okay, so typecasting has been taught, I think. Yeah, if you go through the lectures, again you will.
Sir, one more thing. When I say a reference, okay, so there is a parent class and I create a child class. When we create a new object, we give a reference either as a child class or as a parent class. What happens exactly in memory, that I want to know? At that moment, when we refer parent and when we refer a child, in both cases, what happens in memory exactly? In background means how
okay, okay, just give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I will answer this. Give me just 1 minute. I'm just answering. There is just someone is coming. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, what when basically when we are making a, what happens in memory is,
because sir, when we create object now it goes in dynamic. And that main is in a stack. So I wanted to know with a reference what is going to happen.
okay, so it would be better if I use a variable. Okay, so this is the basic structure of your class. Okay, this is your memory. Okay, now what is this memory? We are okay, so let's say this is your main method. Inside the main method, I'm creating an object of B class, not object, a reference. So actually I should not write names like obj because these are reference variable, rather write ref. Reference of B equal to new B. This is one. B's reference to, yeah, let's make it one only, it's confusing. New C. So these two things are allowed. We discussed many times, this is actually allocating memory. Allocating memory, right? Why, which part is actually, you know what is allocating memory? Whenever your constructor is called, that is actually doing that part internally. Whatever you are defining inside constructor, that is fine, that is initialization. But just when constructor is called internally in the system, the memory allocation is also done. Okay, you are not writing any code inside constructor to allocate memory, but that is what's happening inside. Okay, whenever you are calling using new operator, this thing. Okay, the first point first, that whatever we write using new, right? In Java, we can only create object using new operator, right? So therefore, everything would be in heap. So this whole right side is heap, the whole thing. Okay, there is no stack activation record. I mean, inside the activation record, I mean, you have the stack. Sorry, you have the activation record inside the stack, and another part is the heap, right? In the whole process diagram that we discussed. So all this is taken from heap because you are using new. New means it is taken from heap. Okay, so when you write this statement, statement number 1, right? What you have basically is you create an object of B type, B class. So what is there in B class? Only one integer variable. So assuming integer is 4 bytes, right? This is your B classes X, right? So this is a 4 bytes value. Okay. Now, when you use another class to extend it, right? So this C class also has X by inheritance, right? So when this statement is executed, what will happen is initially, now let's discuss this thing. You all know that a super call happens when you call the constructor of child class. Remember, right? Whenever you call the child class constructor, this C class constructor is called. Implicitly inside that constructor, a super call will happen just to the super class constructor. That is there in inheritance. You all have learned that.
Yeah.
Why it is called? The reason for that is you will get the memory. If you do not get the memory, where will you store X? Because X is a part of superclass. Okay, obviously initialization is there. You have to initialize the variable, but also that works also has to be done. You also have to have the memory. So that's why the first super call happens, because at first I need that memory. Then only I will put another I will attach this Y's memory, right? So therefore, the first whenever I execute this statement, at first B's constructor would be called the superclass, and a B's X would be generated, which is 4 bytes. Okay. After that, so inside the C's constructor body, what will happen? A super, right? This is executed, so this is generated. After that, I am also writing whatever the Y equal to whatever value I want to put and all, right? So then whenever this constructor is called, I will again have another value, which is C is Y. Integer type, I mean, if it is string, whatever, I mean, whatever the variable type is, you will allocate accordingly 4 bytes, right? So this whole thing is actually the object of your C class. C is object.
So then for ref1 and ref2, that intx will be the same location it will be pointing, or it will be different or copy of that?
Ref1 or ref2? Okay, yeah, ref1 and ref2.
Ref1
yeah,
and...
no, this is happening differently. So when this line is executed, a separate memory block was there, right? Okay. Why? Because is the constructor call, I mean, here also, whenever you are writing C, a super call is happening. Super call essentially means this is equal to a B's constructor call, right? In logic, meaning you cannot write B constructor, but you are writing super, but that is basically calling the B's constructor. So I'm just writing it as B's constructor call. But is this constructor call and this constructor call same call? These two are different calls, right? For two different objects. Therefore, the memory would also be different. Instance variable, not static. Okay, so this is separate. So whenever you are executing this, only this line, this first line, then a block would be created for X, which is 4 bytes. Okay, and your ref1 would be pointing to this block. Okay, and whenever you execute second line, initially B will be called and this will be created. Then C's this will be created and ref2 will point here as the whole object. This is one whole object. This is not a single.
Sir, I have one more doubt.
Now, yeah, but this is the logical view that I gave. Practically, this is not 8 bytes. You cannot simply sum the values of the data members and see and confirm that this is the size of the object. That is not in Java. In C++, there is a way to actually, to discuss these things, that you can sum up the total size of the total variables that you have, and then you can actually infer that, okay, this would be the size of the object. That you can do in C++. In Java, this is not how it happens. Internal system works are there, and that's why the size changes. But logically, this is what it's happening. Excluding the internal system related work, this is the basic logic how it works. Okay, so these two are separate memory locations. Yeah.
Now, sir, if I write a third statement, C ref3 equal to new C.
C
ref3.
Okay.
New C.
Fine.
So I understood this from this explanation, what will happen with the third case. What I wanted to know, on the rightmost side, we are writing that B, and C, that is parent and the child's name. We said that this is a reference to that object. So where in memory that reference exists, that I want to.
Where in memory this reference exists?
No, that B, and C we write now. That B is a reference. This B ref1 we are writing. This B reference to this object ref1. We mentioned like this, reference. We are taking a reference.
Yeah, reference is ref1. That's why I wrote ref1. Object is this one.
And this B that we write very initially on right hand side, we mention a class, a parent class. Rightmost first parameter B.
This one.
This one. This B, and C in same column.
Yeah,
what we actually play a role in this?
Yeah, this is just the type. This is, you are defining. It's like index. Not this index. Let's take something else. So it's like char y. When you write char y, what do you mean? This is the data type of y, right? So it's like this is B is the data type of ref1 variable. B is the data type of ref1 variable. So what is the type of reference one variable? It is B class type. What does that mean? That ref1 variable can only point to an object. Object means memory. Reference, this is not memory at all. This is just a open vessel, a variable where you will put the value. The value is the object. Okay. So when I'm writing B ref1, that means ref1 is a variable of B type, just like char y, where you will put a value. That value is the object, and the condition is you can only put objects which is of class B, or inherited classes. Basically, B and subclasses. Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, so that is the idea. So I write char y. This is B ref1. I write equal to C. I put a value which is equal to new. That's the same thing. So here it is the cat type value. Here it is an object type value. Okay.
Yes, sir. Good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. I think that would be it for today. If you have any, I think there's two string that overriding that was a little bit involved one. You can just check that you just have to return the string. All other things we discussed, and all other, if you understand these questions that we discussed, I hope other questions should be clear. Some logical issues may arise that you can deal with on your own, but if you have any doubt, post it on discourse. Yeah, Pritodip.
Yeah, sir, one last question before the session ends.
Yeah.
Sir, the modifier static, I have always faced issues with that. Like wherever it is not required, I have used statics and I get an error. Sometimes when it is required, I have not used it and then I get an error. Can you specify like why the only problem I have with static is I'm not sure where it is exactly required. So I just like type it by default, and then if an error arises, I just remove it. So
I think we discussed that in detail, right? So static is something which is not your object dependent. Object means it's simply it's a implementation of the blueprint. Blueprint is the class, object is the implementation of that blueprint. So I have one mold, right? You know idols are made using molds. So in a mold you simply put the whatever the iron or casting, and then it comes out. So class is something like that mold in which you can put the the liquid metal, that and you will get the object. The object is the idol that you are getting, and the class is just the mold. Got the idea? So that is the basic. That's why we call it blueprint. Now the property, once you make the object should have some specific properties. But once you have this iron molded idol out from, sorry, not iron molded, this iron idol out from the mold, you can color one idol red color, another idol blue color. You can do that, right? No issues. Does it depend whether the first idol you colored red, does it anyway interfere with you, interfere or restrict you to color the second idol blue? It does not do that. You can do that. One red, one blue, that is fine. So that's the property. I will have the basic structure, an object will have the basic structure defined by the class. It will not violate the structure or blueprint defined by the class. Similarly, an idol will not violate the basic structure that the mold has given it. But some properties which are there, right, that may be color, which are internal properties of the idol itself, right, that can change from one idol to another. All of the idols will follow the blueprint, but all of them have their own properties also. The blueprint will be followed, but the values of those properties would be different. So this is the relation between object and class. So all of them will have their own properties, but all these properties would be of same type or same blueprint that is decided by the class, right? But in some cases, you may need some properties which should be followed by all the objects, irrespective of, of that class. For that class, whatever object you create, all the object must have those values as same, right? For example, that we discussed in iron, that molding, let's assume the weight of the mold, not the mold, the weight of the idol. So ignoring physical real life physics, ignoring those density and all those topics, if you put a simple iron molten iron into the mold, then, and if the mold is there, every time the same mold is used, then all the idols that you get outside the mold would be of same weight, correct? It will not change. It has to be same. It will never change. It will be same, right? So you can make this weight as a static variable because it will not change. It is same. Now, one important point is in this particular description that use case that I gave you, here you are fixing the weight, but static does not mean you are fixing the weight. It rather means if you are changing that value, it will change for all the objects, right? An instance value will always remain different for each object. If you change the name of one object, it will not change for the other object. It will not reflect for other objects. But static variable, if you create and if you change it for one object, then it will also change for all other objects. It will be reflected for all other objects without you changing. You can only you change one, it will reflect for others. Okay. So let me give you a very nice example of this, which I think if you have done PDSA, you have worked on it. So recursion you all have done. Those who have done PDSA.
Yes,
you did PDSA, so you did recursion. Okay, fine. So in recursion, if you want a variable to store the value on every recursive count, so whenever you are also calling the next recursive call, then also you want the value to be same. Let me give you the real example. You want to count how many times the recursion is happening. Okay, so you have a condition. On that whenever that condition is becoming false, you want to quit the code. Quit the recursion, stop the recursion. Fine. And you have to print out at the end of the day that how many times your function recurs, how many recursion calls happened. How will you do that? If you want to define a method, if you want to define an int count inside the recursive function, will it be there for all the calls? Whenever you go to the next recursive call, that would become, I mean, that would be reset, right? Right? It would be reset. That's just a local variable. So how to deal with this issue? What you do is you define it static. So once you define it static, the value would be preserved between the recursive calls. It would not. So first recursive call, it would be 1, then you do plus plus. In the second recursive call, it would not be reset to 0. It would be 1 and then 2, then 3. So basically what it basically means is whenever you are changing function calls, the value of that variable is still persisted. It will not change. Even when that variable you are defining inside the method itself, method's body itself. Similarly here, whenever you are defining a parameter to be static inside the class, that means that particular variable will change for all the object. You change it for one object, it will change for all the object. Right? It will persist. It will persist between objects. There it was persisting between function calls. Here it will persist between objects. Okay, but instance variable will not persist. If you change for one, another it will not reflect. It will be same.
All of this applies to methods as well, right? The static concept, whatever you said right now.
Yeah. It applies to static methods also, but static method means you do not use object to call those methods. You directly use class name, because static method means what? It is not anything. Static means what? It is not related to the object. It is something which would be common to all objects. If it is not related to the object at all, then why will we use an object dot function name? That's meaningless. It's not related to the object. So we will call a static method using class name. Class name dot function name. Got it?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So you can watch that singleton discussion that I did once. I mean, if the static concept would be clear, you can, I mean, if the concept is clear, you can see the application in that singleton class. Okay.
Yes, I got it. Thanks. I will.
Okay. So I will stop now. We are already super late.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah, good night.
Good night, sir. Good night.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you for this. Good night.